joining us in reading through the Bible and story in 30 days. Today's reading is Genesis 46, verses 1 through 30. And if you've not read this passage, please pause the video and read it now. Have you ever moved a great distance? When I was 11 years old, my family moved from Connecticut to Arizona. And for a boy my age, in the early 1960s, that was quite a move. We sold many of our belongings, packed up the car, and the six of us drove out to Arizona. It was a trip filled with both wonder and fear. We had no idea what was ahead of us, and frankly, the four of us children didn't really have any idea of why exactly that we were moving in the first place. Well, God had promised Abraham the land upon which Jacob had resided for a long period of time. It had first been promised to Abraham, and then to Isaac, and then to Jacob himself. And yet now God was telling Jacob that he was going to have to leave the land and live in Egypt. And he was not going to return to it in his lifetime. It must have been a very difficult and frustrating experience. And yet, Jacob chose to follow God. He knew that he would die in Egypt. He knew that his life would never be the same. He knew that there was going to be a new adventure and adventures and new struggles, and none of that had been defined yet. And he did what his grandfather Abraham had done. He left his home knowing that he would never return. But you know, God is faithful. And through circumstances at the time seemed very negative, he provided a home in what became the nation of Israel. It was through all the struggles that Joseph went through that Israel became powerful, and under Moses' leadership, they returned to the land that Jacob was leaving. We need to be willing to move anywhere that God would have us to move. He may not choose to move us at all, but he may choose us to move us in a complete direction away from that which we have known and begin a new adventure. And the question is, how will you handle it? Will you go kicking or screaming, or will you have knowing that God has your back, and will you move in that way, and that God will guide you in whatever you do? Even though as a country, our people are explorers, right? Many of us are very content to remain where we are because frankly we're comfortable. And while God does move while we're comfortable many times, he moves in greater ways because we are uncomfortable.